different bling, 'cause all I see is the pain they bring. Don't buy me diamonds, diamonds are not my friend. Don't buy me diamonds, 'cause diamonds smell like death. I walk alone in a veil and a black dress, so don't buy me diamonds, 'cause diamonds smell like death.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another DA Musical HQ artist session, coming to you live out of Spandau in Berlin. And we've got another really exciting one this evening, and certainly a discussion which will offer much intrigue and all of that sort of stuff. And we'll have a sneak preview for you as well, so that's pretty exciting. This is a track from her recent EP called Hacksaw, called Diamonds, and it's a fun track. Lots of sax in there, it's great. We've got just to let you know, we still support the World Health Organization, the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund. And any donations that come through to us during the course of the next couple of months, 10% of those donations will go through to them. So don't buy me diamonds, just donate. Without much further ado, we're going to head over to London, where Ruby has moved. I thought she was still in Berlin, but no. Anyway, but here we go. Ruby Jean Rose, how are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. That's a great little track.
Thank you.
It's fun.
Yeah, I wrote that a long time ago, but it still resonates somehow. So yeah.
I hear a little bit of Cameron in there. Am I right?
Cameron?
Yeah, you know Cameron.
Oh, from Famous Gold Watch. No, actually, I didn't know him at that point. This was recorded in 2018.
Oh, was it in 2018?
Yeah, they were definitely going then, but I was not so aware of them. And that was done with my friend Tomas and my other friend Dave, and we were the only three instrumentalists on that whole record. So yeah.
So cool. It's fun.
Yeah. In fact, the sax you're hearing is Janina Lombardi. She was the only extra musician who came in and played.
Oh, that's
and
great.
She's brilliant.
It's great. So, you're in London. What?
Well, Brighton, actually.
Oh, Brighton. Okay, so Brighton.
And even worse, like actually Hove.
although that's pretty cool. I mean, you're near the beach and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm right on the beach. Actually, it's super.
That's
awesome.
Not bad. That's not bad.
It really could be worse.
What happened? Like, what did you just like? What? Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, well, the same old story I'm sure every musician is telling at the moment, which is all the work for the entire year was canceled. Yeah. So I had tours lined up all the way through autumn, all of which are gone, and obviously, and it was kind of a thing of, do I stay here where I can't work, or do I return home and be closer to family and people who I care about, and was finding it hard to be away from, I think, during a crisis. So I think like these moments in your life get you thinking, and I thought I'd be here for a few months, but a few mitigating circumstances happened, and it started to become clear that I wasn't going to be able to hit the road again for at least another year. So it just seems wiser to regroup, take this time to kind of come up with a more long-term plan for my life, and which I think in the long run will actually work out way better. So I think this in a way can be a positive.
Yeah, I mean, look, I suppose if it's a safe and secure spot there in the UK, it makes a bit more sense, right? To be where where you can
Well,
be.
my German isn't great, so I think like getting another job to keep me afloat
Totally.
is quite difficult in Berlin, and
Yeah.
it's becoming very apparent that that's what has to happen, which it was a hard pill to swallow at first, but now I'm sort of looking at it as a way that I can take some time to save and actually invest in my career when things start up again. And I've recorded and I'm releasing a single on Friday, and I have a lot of music ready to come out, so it
great.
doesn't feel like
No, well, that's great. As long as you are looking after that career, that music career of yours, and finding a way to be able to support it, that's the key. I think. Look, even though the German government did like a really good job to kind of contain the whole virus situation, it doesn't mean that there are a lot of companies that have got like hiring freezes, and like the economy is tough going at the moment. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, that was apparent, and I think I'm a member of Berlin Street Music, which is an initiative to protect the street art in Berlin, and we started extending our reach to music venues during the crisis. So I was talking pretty directly with the situation that a lot of the even quite large venues in Berlin were facing, and they're in trouble. I mean, there was, I do think, a great response from the German government, but this is not. It's a global issue, and also for me, my income relies very heavily on being able to move around freely.
Of course.
Like, it's not just being able to play shows in Berlin, because you can't just play shows in the same town over and over and over again.
Of course not.
You have to be able to fly from place to place, and I was constantly on the move, and that was how I paid my way.
Yeah, and travel is obviously shot for the next 6 months to a year, if not longer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, that is, and even so, when you arrive, like, I think, well, traveling in the way that a touring musician has to is just simply irresponsible right now. And I don't want to do it for moral and obvious one and legal reasons. But yeah, it's so I think that way of performing live music is going to change dramatically over the next couple of years. So
where do you think it's going?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because now that we've all been in one place for the longest time in years, most of us, we've all kind of gone like, oh my goodness, I have not spent any time with my friends or loved ones like ever. And I think what I'm hearing from a lot of musicians is like, maybe this lifestyle wasn't so healthy. And I think that was something that crossed my mind. I definitely miss being on the road a lot, but I think having your entire livelihood coming from there isn't, it's really, really tough. And these sort of, I don't want to say complaints, but struggles are starting to become very apparent as we're seeing, musicians speaking out online more, and we're spending much more time in front of our computers. And I'm hoping that we're going to hopefully develop a means to get some income through digital streams. But that, I think we've been fighting that battle for a long time, and I'm a bit dubious on that one. Or that you're going to start seeing slower, more drawn out tours, which, yeah, or you'll see music scenes become a bit more localized. It's really hard to predict. I'm kind of, and I think outdoors and smaller, that's another thing. Like living room concerts, I have a feeling they were already on the rise, and I think that will take another big jump. And yeah, we'll be spending a lot more time outside. So,
and maybe even more kind of, I suppose, maybe more sort of seated concerts rather than standing room and more formalized performance.
Yeah, I think in a way, it might become a bit of a golden age for folk music, to be honest, because that's kind of what I do anyway.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, if you look at a lot of the venues in Berlin as an example, a lot of them are like quite sort of smoky bar type operations, which is not so great. I mean, also from a health perspective, you know, we would probably need to rethink that a little bit going forward, you know?
Yeah. I think we've all been forced to take a really long, hard look at ourselves and our lives and the way that we've been living. And, you know, once everything slows down to that extent, you kind of are like, hey, that wasn't so great. And that, you know, I think when you're caught up in this rush of doing so much all at once, all the time, it's really hard to see those issues because you're too busy. And it's all starting to come out. And I think we're just sort of realizing stuff now, and I'm hoping over the course of 2021 that we'll start to see some solutions. And I think that is coming forward already. Like a lot more people are going to Patreon accounts and wanting to support their favorite local artists. And you know, I had a lot of messages when it first started from fans and friends, like, how can I help you? What pushes your career forward? And like, I never really had that before. So I think that's, you know, people are thinking about it, and that's good.
It's interesting. I mean, I also, I started a Patreon account years ago, and it was just sitting dormant. And I also started looking into how I could help other musicians. So what I started doing is I had like 6 or 7 musicians in the same account. So each musician had a different tier, or like one tier each. And it actually started working. Really started working. But I've since kind of started moving everyone into their own accounts and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think if I think it is going to move that route. It's going to be sort of more a balance between like online and terrestrial support, you know? So you'll have like this sort of fan base supporting you sort of financially, and then you'll perform, and you know, you've already made the money essentially for that performance for those particular fans. So yeah, look, it's interesting. It'll be there are a number of changes to come, I'm sure, in the months to come.
Yeah, and you know, hopefully positive. It does seem to be headed that way. I mean, I'm seeing movements to protect music venues and musicians actually being successful in this time, which, like, I mean, not to say that they weren't before, but I think there's more time to listen. So and that's never a bad thing.
Exactly. Well, let's ask a question a couple of questions that I've got. Give us a little bit of background as to your music, kind of your music career or your music life. How did that begin?
Well, okay, I guess we're gonna have to go way back. I started playing the cello when I was 8, in school orchestras and stuff. I was like acting in films from the age of 2, actually, and I did musical. It was more theater, but definitely there was some musical theater stuff. So I think that was where perhaps singing began, but I never really thought of myself as a singer. And I played cello for years, and then I was living in Los Angeles. That was where I was born, and I moved to a small town next to Brighton called Lewis when I was 12, and I started playing cello for some rock bands there, and that was super cool. And I was kind of picking up the guitar at the same time, and always writing, but not really ever telling anybody about it. And it was a kind of, you know, those after school band projects. It's like a youth music organization, basically. And I was a member of that. And the guy in charge said, 'cause he'd seen me coming in with my cello, and said, "Do you do your own stuff?" And I was kind of like, yeah, and I sort of went in with a couple of friends, again, just expecting to be like a lead guitarist. And we kind of realized that we didn't have a singer or any lyrics. And I had my notebook in my bag and started singing, and the rest is history. But yeah,
and now you're sort of almost back to your cello roots, as it were.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I kept playing all through high school and even a bit more like into I think I kind of stopped when in my early 20s, because of life. Was moving around, and it's not so easy to run around the globe with a cello.
Correct.
And yeah, I picked it up again in the last couple of years, and it's sort of slowly coming back into my life. And I, on a whim, upon meeting a girl on a night out, started writing soundtracks for short films. And I've done 2 so far, and I'm about to do a 3rd. And
wow.
It's sort of, yeah, that was a really cathartic experience for me, because that was my first instrument, and I was always upset that I had lost it. And string instruments are tricky things and require a lot of work. So I'm not back to the skills that I used to have, but it is getting there, and it feels really good.
That's fantastic. And so what do you at present? I know obviously with this these difficulties we're facing. What are you sort of wanting to do to support your music going forward? What is it that you sort of, job wise, or what is it that you're looking to do?
Well, my plan, because I recorded an EP in lockdown, DIY, with a mate of mine, and that is sort of, I was trying to kind of capture the feeling of all of us being sort of together separately, because I think there was definitely a large feeling of solidarity going around while this was happening, and I wanted to capture that. The songs aren't directly about being stuck at home, but I used instrumentalists from around the globe that I had met on the road, and to send in some recordings remotely. So to try and capture that feeling of, we couldn't play together, but we could.
Like, so, together apart.
Together, yeah. That's the feel for it. So my plan is to release that this year. And I also have a single coming out on Friday that I recorded prior to this. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, I think I'm very fortunate that I've sort of got a backlog of material ready to come out, which is really exciting. And I also started a little video series called Ruby Tuesdays that I was doing when things were a lot more serious and strict. And I was playing from my apartment in Berlin once a week on YouTube, and all 10 episodes are there. So check it out.
We need more of those.
Yeah, I know. I've just moved, so and I need a camera. But my plan is to continue it when I've kind of got my stuff together a little more. But yeah, I mean, financially, I am looking for a day job to get me through. But I think I'm gonna, the plan is to save and invest in some good PR to have some great releases coming out in the next couple of years. So
that's a good move.
I think, yeah,
that's a good
there's
move. Good move. And okay, so look, we've been talking now for 20 minutes. I think it's time that we maybe consider a small performance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would love to play Dark Blue Sea, which is coming out on Friday. You can't really see my guitar right now. It's a bit of a phantom guitar. Yeah, obviously I can't do it with the boron player because he's not in the country. But what's really exciting about this song is I used a boron, which is a traditional Irish folk instrument, but I sort of implemented it into a bit of a more modern indie folk way, which I haven't heard done before. So this was really special, having been a traditional Irish folk player for a couple of years. So yeah,
looking forward to
that's
it.
kind of all the backstory I have for this. So yeah, it's coming out on Friday on all digital platforms, and here's Dark Blue Sea. Deep in the dark blue sea, I lost my grip on the reins of reality. I thought water was there to wash me clean, but the hold of my heartstrings are strongly interfering. And I am falling, 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 falling. I beg for sweet bliss to let me still love so naive. But what drove me to this was my heart's navigating. Fight, 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 burn myself, my compass impelled, and I am falling, 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 falling. So I let that ship sink into a place I can't see, and away I drift, my arms holding me, and I'm falling, falling, into space.
Ah, that's fantastic. That's excellent. Deep Blue Sea. That's
Dark
fantastic.
Blue Sea.
Dark Blue Sea. Deep
I know
and Dark
it's
Blue Sea.
annoyingly particular, but that's the song.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a good point. How do you write songs?
How?
Yeah. What is your modus operandi? How do you go about
Yeah.
it?
I mean, I always say it's like being probed by aliens or something. Yeah, I really don't know where.
Okay.
I think Bob Dylan said that one better, but the I don't know. It sort of comes from an ether. A lot of the time, I just kind of write and it comes out. But I did start sort of giving myself a bit more of a method so that I can stop waking up at 3 a.m. because that was annoying. And yeah, I would sort of force myself to free write at particular times of the day, and then you can kind of trick your mind into coming up with words at a more suitable hour. And that was when I sort of managed to gain control of when if I wanted to sit down and write something, I could. And I always just try to approach it like a story. Like there's a beginning, middle, and end, and a kind of chorus summing up the plot. But also to never have any kind of restrictions on myself. Like I can give you a bunch of rules that I have, but I will always tell people, make sure you break every single one of those every now and then, because I think the moment you try to put yourself in too tight of a box creatively, you get like, I can't do this. It's frustrating, and the beautiful thing about being an artist is feeling free and not restricted in what you can do. So I think that's really important to sort of keep telling yourself.
And do you always write lyrics first, or is that the first thing that sort of comes to you 3 a.m?
Yeah, I mean, it used to always be words first, which is rare for a songwriter. I think because I was always sort of writing little stories and poems when I was a kid before I ever picked up an instrument. So I definitely, put a lot on writing, but sometimes it happens the other way around. And I think I had songs that just came out in like one sort of like push where I just sat with myself and the whole thing just happened at the same time. And I have had it where I've been messing around with the guitar riff for a while, and then I'm like, words start to come, or I do the two completely separate where I've written some lyrics and then I'll also write some guitar parts and suddenly realize that actually they could be made to fit together quite well. So
it's just kind of
I'm
keeping
consistently
it
inconsistent, I think, in that sense.
I suppose living out of the box is a good thing.
Yeah. But I would definitely, like, the thing I do tend to do most frequently is write first and then sort of be like, that goes with that, and match it all up, and it becomes a bit like a puzzle.
And then one thing that sort of ties in with that question is, have you done much collaboration? Like, have you been writing collaboratively with people? How, and do you feel that is a beneficial process? What, just give us some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I think a lot of songwriters are afraid of co-writes, and I think that's a big mistake. I've done a lot of co-writing in my time. I released one single that was co-written with a friend of mine called Jamie, and it's called Bad Girls. It's actually also on Spotify. It's very old. I was quite young when I did that, but yeah, I also used to do co-writing sessions with the Danish Musicians Union that would come down to Berlin, I think on a biannual basis. And basically what they do is they get a bunch of songwriters and they have an apartment and they have sort of songwriting challenges, and they are paired with another songwriter for each, I think, more than once a day. And you're given a time limit, and you have to write a song about a certain theme within a certain time. And this, I think, is like, whether or not you keep that song, giving yourself exercises like this, I think really kicks your songwriting to the next level, because when you see how somebody else works, you learn how to sort of go at something from a new angle. And while I don't think you should ever lose your method or your style, um, yeah, opening yourself up to working with other people and seeing another way of doing things, I think will definitely help in preventing writer's block and just not getting stuck in the same pattern of writing, and maybe writing about something completely different for once. And I think, yeah, it's super beneficial. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think that's also like an interesting direction. Like, people are forgetting the whole publishing route, and you know, being able to co-write with other people gives you an opportunity to get co-write royalties.
Exactly.
And that's something that, I mean, that's another avenue, you know.
Totally. I mean, a big dream of mine has been to write songs for other artists. Like, even in the kind of early stages of my career, one of the things that brought me to Berlin was I'd been hired to write English lyrics for a Polish pop star. And I was super excited about this job. And unfortunately, she ended up pulling the whole album, and I don't really know what happened. But yeah, from then I loved pretending to be somebody else while I was writing, and kind of writing under a different persona.
Yeah.
And it was a really great experience for me as a songwriter, and I really would be so happy to do more of that. Just putting that out there.
Well. And then I've got a question which is sort of quite removed from that. Your favorite venue that you've played at, or venues that we used to know that you would love to play at?
Wow, that's hard because there's a lot. I think I would have to have one in every country.
Go ahead.
I've performed in. For Berlin, I mean, my home base was Kindelstuben for a while, but I think one of my largest concerts performed was at Wild at Heart, when I was doing a kind of burlesque and live music crossover. I had my own like larger gig at Toast Hawaii, and then I jumped on with the big Teaserettes burlesque show at the end of 2018, and that was, the place was packed, and it was really exciting, and I got to do a sort of abbreviated version of my cabaret show there, and it was really cool. And I'd say for Los Angeles, the Hotel Cafe is amazing. I've played there a couple times, and I love the way it's run, and its whole ethos is so cool. And yeah, both my shows there were really special. Where am I? England. Yeah, here. I mean, I've played some really great shows at the Con Club, but in terms of, I think the best gigs in the UK are at festivals always. Like, the festival culture in this country is like unbeatable, in my opinion. I think it's like, I've never seen it so centered around music, and they have like so many great like festivals for up and coming bands. And I played like an Americana one called Red Rooster, and that was like really special in like an old barn. And
wow.
I think that almost has to be one of the best gigs I've ever played. And it's, people go to festivals for a lot of reasons, but it really feels like people are there for the music here. And I think that's like one thing England should be really proud of.
I wonder when the Great Escape is going to rear its head again.
I hope it comes back for 2021. Yeah, I mean, like, I think I'm dying to play there.
Wow.
I ran an event for the Brighton Fringe, which kind of happens around the same time, another cabaret live music event in 2013. So yeah, I'm really I really want to get on Great Escape and stuff like that. But I think another problem that musicians are going to be facing next year is, of course, they're already booked because all the bookings have been
they've
transferred
postponed
over.
it. Yeah, exactly.
So really, it's a 2-year wait. But
man.
Yeah. But it's okay. I think that's more time to release stuff and come up with a battle plan.
Exactly. And then what was I going to ask? I know these questions are all few and far between. That guitar that you've got there, what is that? Can't really see it properly.
Yeah, this is a Gibson LG2 that I purchased off of Ben, known as Romer. To his fans, he is the open mic host for Prachtwerk in Berlin.
Okay.
And he has been a great friend and supporter of my music. And I was touring with a dreadnought that was frankly too big for me for a year, and I busted my shoulder.
Oh no.
And he said, I'm selling my guitar and it seems much more fitted to someone as petite as you. And he gave me a really good price, and it is the best thing that ever happened to me. I love this guitar so much. It is like, it sings.
Gibson makes incredible acoustic guitars.
I mean, like,
something that a lot of people don't know is that Gibson makes incredible acoustic guitars.
Like, this is the best in my opinion. I think because it's got this sort of bassiness of a dreadnought, and it can handle the finger picky stuff I do, and it doesn't destroy my back. So
much better shape. Yeah, it's like, I mean, I've got a Santa Cruz, which is that same sort of shape. It's a Parlor style.
Yeah, I love these 00 shaped acoustic guitars. They are great for playing Americana, and they're super versatile and sound beautiful. And I'm not one for high pitched stuff. I like sort of deep, warm resonance from my guitars. So Gibson nails it. And I hope I can get an endorsement now.
Well, we'll work on it. And then so you've got your next single coming out on Friday, and that's obviously what we listened to earlier. And what's the next sort of, what's the pattern? Like, you're gonna release something every month or every 2 months, or?
So this is a little confusing, and I think this is something I need to work on in this extra time that I've had. It's separate to the EP, so I recorded this prior to the lockdown record that I made in lockdown, and so I did this in a studio with my friend Tomas and the Boron player, and we did that entirely analog, mastered analog to tape. So all one take performances. Cool. And so like that's got a different feel, I'd say, to the other one, which was made in an almost entirely opposite manner, because we had limited equipment and musicians obviously, and like, so it was done in a very digital way, and though it was incorporating a lot of live musicians, it was a DIY setup, and with remote recordings and sort of some sample synths thrown in there. So they are two separate projects, really. But this single will be out on Friday, and I'm hoping that I will be able to release this EP single by single throughout autumn. You'll probably get a couple more singles, and then I'll drop the whole thing before the end of the year.
That would be cool.
Yeah, my plan of action so far. We'll see.
And then I have an interesting sort of quite involved question, because you were quite involved in the whole Berlin street musicians situation, and can you give us a little bit of insight, like what is going on? Like, why is the Senate being that challenging and that difficult when it comes to musicians?
Well, I mean, it's not the Senate. Actually, basically what happened is Mauer Park got a bad neighbor, and the fact is that the laws for street music haven't been updated like since the 80s. So what made sense then makes absolutely no sense now, because so much has changed, especially in regards to playing on the streets. And obviously Berlin has changed vastly since then.
Yeah.
And I
Vastly.
mean, in a lot of ways,
There is
it's
no
not
wall left.
divided into 4 parts anymore. Yeah. And there's and I think that that's another really challenging aspect from it, is that like a lot of the divisions that were left over from when the wall was there still remain. So if you want to get anything done in government in Berlin, you have to attack it district by district, which is a very lengthy process. So to sum it up for anybody who doesn't know, we got a bad neighbor who moved in across the street from Mauer Park, and he actually wasn't across the street. He was 2 blocks away and actually completely out of earshot, but kept calling the police on buskers who were playing in Mauer Park every Sunday. So we organized, and there were peaceful protests for 3 months, and that eventually got us a seat in Parliament. And we've been lobbying there for 2 years now. And we were successful in terms of having busking legalized in Mauer Park, but obviously that is the district council for Pankow-Prenzlauer Berg, and that's only one area. So what we're trying to do is pass it completely and copy paste throughout every district, which 5 in Berlin. And obviously once we sort of gain a bit more momentum, we'll have a snowball effect, and other councils will be like, okay, well, it's much easier for us to just copy paste the rules. Unfortunately, we were making some real great progress with Alexanderplatz, and we were about to sort of implement a whole new system that was fair between neighbor and busker. But then coronavirus happened, so that put some serious delays. We were, to make you scream even harder, we were 1 week away from signing everything off to go ahead, and then this happened. So yeah, we watched a lot of years of work just disappear really fast. But the good thing is that because everybody seems to be better off outside, they want to encourage outdoor concerts. So I think in a way this will prove to be a good thing for the movement. Unfortunately there's less money to push it as there was before.
I mean, I've been seeing some rather challenging and horrible stories about the police and the Ordnungsamt stealing musicians' equipment and all of that, or at least not stealing, but confiscating. And they're not returning the equipment.
I mean, well, the fact that it's getting returned is a big step, because usually you don't see that again.
No, they're not. They don't return it. They just keep it up. They keep it locked up in a secret room somewhere. Like, what?
I know, it's awful. And then that is one thing that we want to try to get outlawed entirely, is to be able to confiscate a musician's gear, because to most full-time artists that's a death sentence. So it's a serious thing to do to somebody, and
those are their working tools. Of course, if you contravene a rule or a law that has been actually created and set up, then and you find, obviously that's fine, but don't take someone's musical equipment away. What kind of rubbish is that? It's nonsense.
I mean, again, because the rules are sort of arbitrary and very vague, that police are kind of free to interpret them as they see fit.
That's a problem.
And there's not a lot we can do about that until the official laws are completely changed. And that is sort of the biggest challenge, is German bureaucracy, which is famous for being
red tape.
If you've seen the amount of paperwork that's gone into this movement,
I mean, just imagine.
Yeah,
just imagine.
never saw myself as someone doing pages and pages of Excel, but here I am, which is great for helping me find a day job now. But like, yeah, it's insane. So yeah, it's just sort of trying to fight through. It's a government that is actually fairly new and is still kind of got a glued together set of rules from both the Soviet Union and when it was occupied by the US. So I think like what we need to unpack here is it's a lot of bureaucracy. And the thing with Ordnansamt as well is 2 years ago, the head of the Ordnansamt was taken over by an AfD member.
Oops.
Which also correlates with the increase on harassment from police to street musicians. So this, I think, impacted everything quite heavily, and they are the ones who are blocking everything we try to get through. I mean, thankfully, we have handed in a study that Carla Hyman, Miss Stereochemistry, and myself put together that seems to be giving us a bit of a stronger push. And but everybody, and also Yuli is designed these acoustic shells for Mauer Park, which is kind of like a little dome for musicians that will deflect the noise back down to the ground. So for like louder artists, it will contain the noise a lot better.
Well, like a stage, or sort of like
it's more like a shell. Okay. So it's like a little, so you can still, it'll be street music because we don't want to create a stage because then it changes the nature of the performance and might make it more difficult to receive donations because people will think it's an organized show, and that psychologically has an effect.
Okay, so I mean, it's almost like almost like an amplifier in essence.
Yeah, like the opposite of an amplifier, because an amplifier puts noise out, whereas
it keeps it
shoots
kind
the
of
sound back in.
Exactly. Yeah.
As a festival tent does, or anything like that, just a smaller one and on the ground. So there's, there are these really frustrating and awful sides to what's happening right now, but I think there's a lot of positive things fighting through. It is really upsetting that they could not be happening sooner, but everything has just been slowed down. I'm
of course
pretty confident that it's very much going ahead still, and I'm still involved. Good. Even from a distance. Good. Yeah, I'm still doing social media. So
well, I mean, everything is online and everything is sort of. I mean, look at this. I mean, this is what we can do. Like, it's just mad.
It doesn't really matter anymore. No. I mean, that's it. A lot of our meetings with Parliament lately have been over Zoom. So, that's the way forward now.
Exactly. What I was thinking is maybe do you want to do another song, and then we can kind of tie up with another song, and what do you think?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, I'd love to play another song.
Cool.
Awesome. So
your choice.
I'm gonna play one from the upcoming EP.
Cool.
So in terms of release dates and all of that, I'm not sure, but we're still in the mixing process. But on Friday, I'll go to Spotify, and then stay tuned for more news about this record. And because we've been talking a lot about how touring is going to change. I wrote this when I was kind of burning out from constantly being on the road and not feeling like I could form meaningful relationships like I wanted to, and starting to think that there is definitely more important things in your life than your work. And this is called What If. No, I'm not afraid of failure. I'm just worried about wondering what if No, I'm not afraid of failure. Just wondering, what if? Oh, don't let me live life alone. I can't have this with no one to show. There's more important things. There's more important things. There's always something missing. No, I'm not afraid of failure. I just fear I'm hiding. No, I'm not scared of it all. I just shudder at the risk I didn't take. Oh, don't let me live life alone. Oh, hold out your hand to hold. There's more important things. There's more important things. There's more important things. Ooh.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I love that.
Thank you so much.
Ruby, it's been incredible to have you on the show, and I wish you all the best there in Hove, getting sort
Thank you.
of settled in there. And if you see if you see it if you see it within the next few months, it'll be great to have you back in Berlin.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I'll definitely be coming over for some visits and to play some shows. That's,
yeah,
that's a
great.
definite.
That'll
So
be great.
yeah, hopefully things will get better sooner rather than later.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we all hope that. We all hope that. But yeah, give us a shout whenever you're in the neck of the woods, and yeah, great to have you on, and we'll be tuning in on Friday for your release.
Awesome,
Which
yeah.
is the
I
Dark
look
Blue
forward
Sea
to
on
it.
Friday, released everywhere apparently.
Everywhere. In your toaster.
In your toaster. Plug into your toaster and you'll hear it.
Plug into your toaster. I got a single. It's gonna pop right up.
But yeah.